Good morning. Let me thank you for this opportunity to present Czech Global Development Education Strategy for Committee for Development of European Parliament and to other colleagues who deal with this issue. This is a topic which is really important for our government, for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which I represent. I come from the Department for Development Cooperation and Humanitarian Aid. I would like to present several sentences, several points, how and why we designed our strategy for global development education, who was part in this process, and what are our expectations to achieve with this strategy. Let me tell you several introductory words about the Czech Republic. After joining the OECD and the EU, Czech Republic became a donor country committed to providing aid to developing countries and to fighting global poverty. This commitment, however, may only be honoured provided it is supported by the public, by the Czech public. In the contrary from other OECD countries, the awareness of the Czech public of global issues and the methods of their solving remains still relatively low. Despite the undeniable solidarity that the Czechs show vis-à-vis humanitarian crises, the general awareness of the people concerning extreme poverty, existence and importance of long-term development cooperation and a host of other related issues is insufficient. To most Czechs, the issues that the developing countries have to face seem distant without any impact on their lives. So these are the reasons why we decided, and not only based on our own observations, but also on recommendations from EU, from GEAN, and also from the situation which led us to give more clear concepts both to state institutions and to our NGOs who were active in this field. So this led us to preparing of the national strategy. The timing was quite proper because when we started with this, let's say 2-3 years ago, we could cope also with the processes being headed by the Ministry of Education, which prepared broader educational reforms of the Czech educational system. Very briefly, history. MFA supported activities by NGOs since 2003, and every year we still have budget lines for NGOs who provide different activities streamlined to Czech educational institutions, schools, teachers and public in general. Minister of Education was involved in the process in a minor part, but their participation is for every year more important. On their own, let's say, workload, they have been preparing framework educational programs for elementary and secondary schools with cross-cutting issues. And since 2007, thanks also to the process of preparation of the strategy, more and more development education principles were included in these strategies. What we taken into account: Maastricht Declaration on Global Education, Brussels Conference final recommendations from 2005, Helsinki Conference conclusions, European Consensus Document on Development Education from 2007, and of course GEAN peer review, which was concluded in 2008 on the Czech Republic. The goals and principles of the process, as I said, clarification of some basic terminological and strategical points, coherence with other educational strategies, better coordination among different actors, and of course dissemination of main principles among relevant stakeholders coming from pedagogical institutes, schools and civil officials and NGOs as well. We prepared strategy which can be obtained both in electronic version and in paper here in this hall, so everybody who is interested can take a copy. In the strategy we have two parts: analytical part where we try to clarify main goals, main topics, main principles, main target groups and main actors, and then strategical parts where the most important topics and tasks for the next 5-year period are defined. Very briefly, why we decided to use the term global development education, we can see that these two denominations, development education, global education, describe phenomena which we would like to cover with our strategy from both of those groups. So therefore we decided it's, let's say, compromise between opinions of experts on education on one side and development practitioners. So for our situation, global development education is the most proper term. Very briefly, you can see that we try to find some interference between Maastricht Declaration, MD, and the cross-cutting issues which are defined by our Ministry of Education. So very quickly, education for sustainability and environmental education, education for democratic citizenship, human rights education, education for peace and conflict prevention. All these elements are covered by our strategy, education towards thinking in European global context as well. Development education and multicultural education is present there as well. Definition which is, I would say, quite general and covering, and we found consensus between all the groups of stakeholders who participated in the process. So both the topic is covered. We want to let people understand different similarities between the lives of people in developing and developed countries, and the processes through the ways developing of skills and supporting adoption of values and beliefs. And the goal is also pointed out. We want to lead people to accept responsibility for creating a world where all people may live with dignity. Major topics, very briefly: globalization, mutual dependency, human rights, global issues, and humanitarian assistance and development cooperation. I have to go through very briefly, but as I said, everything, all of these topics are more closely described in the paper or electronic version of the strategy. We also covered some basic principles, target groups, both from formal education part and non-formal, informal education, let's say children, youth and leisure learning association, pedagogues, teachers, staff of non-governmental, non-profit organizations, business sector, public administration sector, and media. State institutions are very clearly defined, very concretely defined in our strategy, with clear description of their tasks in the process. And to conclude my presentation, I would like to tell you that we would like, or our main goal is that by 2015 we would like the global development education principles and topics to be included in lifelong learning as well as in the educational program across all levels of the Czech system of education. So we hope we will succeed. Thank you.